Let's give a warm welcome to John Shackleton.
How many of you feel a little bit stressed? Not right now, but in life generally. Our lives are becoming more and more stressful. And over the years, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've noticed a huge trend in that. And I think there's a bit of a challenge for a lot of people. The World Health Organization put out a statistic quite recently that said stress will be the number 1 financial burden in our world within 3 years. So it's costing us, already it's costing American companies over $300 billion a year in things like absenteeism. And so it's a massive, massive problem. I don't know, again, statistics, I don't know if you know this, 322 million people around the world currently suffering from depression. There is 1 suicide on this planet every 4 seconds. 800,000 a year. And we worry about Ebola. My own particular stress journey involved getting depression about 4 years ago. I had a very stressful period of my life. Huge amount. We had the global financial crisis, and what does a company do? Do they cancel the coffee or do they cancel a motivational speaker? Think about it. So that I had a downturn in my business, not massive, but a little bit of a downturn. And my mother died during that period. I didn't realize how stressful that would be, but it was hugely stressful for me. I was also turning 60, and I had no idea that I'd made a big thing about the number 60. It's a stupid thing to do, but I had. Could I suggest if you want to make a big thing about a number, make it in the 90s or something, would you? Much more sensible. And finally, the nuttiest thing, I've been a competitive swimmer all my life, the nuttiest thing I've ever done in my entire life was volunteer to attempt to swim Cook Strait. That's absolutely stupid. But I just thought I'd give it a go, you know. It's only 26 kilometers. It's only shark infested. It's only one of the most dangerous pieces of water in the world. It only takes you about 8 hours in 15 degrees of water without a wetsuit. What could possibly go wrong? Yes, unfortunately I got hauled out after 6 hours with hypothermia. Hypothermia does weird things to your brain. I was swimming around palm trees at that point. I'm not sure who'd planted them there, but that's a bit peculiar. So there was an enormous amount of stress in my life at that point, and I hadn't realized, I hadn't realized how much effect it would have on me. Here's the really difficult bit. I've been a top performer all my life in just about everything, and I know the room is full of top performers today. And the interesting part about it is you understand, and I understand, how to push yourself, don't you? You know how to get the best out of you. Would I be right? We are the people, because we know how to push ourselves, we are the people who are lining ourselves up for things like depression and anxiety, because we know how to push ourselves. And what happened in that period of time for me 5 years ago is I pushed myself to the limit and then decided, well, what should we do? Let's push a bit harder. And I fell off the cliff. And that's what, for me anyway, depression felt like, falling off the cliff. When you fall off a cliff, it's not like you can just, oh, I know, I'll just back up. Doesn't work with a cliff, does it? No. So I shut my business down, took all the stress away. What happened? Absolutely nothing. Still had depression. Interesting, isn't it? So I thought I'd need to do something about it. I'm a sports psychologist. I'm a motivational speaker. You get depression. Now that's embarrassing. But more than embarrassing, I needed to work out what's going on. How am I going to solve this problem for me? And I have to tell you, I had those thoughts. Well, maybe the world will be a better place without me. So I did a lot of research and a lot of study, and I found that there are certain causes of stress. I don't know if you know this, but if you research it, you'll find there's things like, you know, job security and financial. Financial is the biggest one. Most people that get into that or get stressed are stressed financially, but relationships and work and all that sort of stuff. Complete and utter rubbish, all of that lot. The causes of stress are internal, not external. Stress doesn't come from out there, it comes from in here. And I'm sure you'll all understand what I mean. So I looked at the internal causes of stress, and there's 8 of them. And the five of them, basically, if you looked up my name in the dictionary, you would see these 5 under my name, like control freak. Any other control freaks in the room? Yeah. The rest of you are lying. We're all control freaks. It's amazing how much, and here's the most incredible thing about control. One of the biggest problems with stress comes from this concept of control. Let me ask you a question. What do you control? Do you control the traffic? And yet you get stressed about it. Do you control the weather? And yet you get stressed about it. Do you control your children? I know you pretend to. Do you control your spouse? No, of course you don't. In fact, most people will say to me, do you know what I do? I control myself. No, you don't. You know you should go to the gym, but you don't. You know you shouldn't eat the donut, but you do. We control what? You're looking for a round number less than 1. We control nothing, and yet we obsess about it. Another one of those list of 5, goal obsessive. How many of you have got goals, really focused on your goals and driving? Goal obsessive. Well, if you don't control anything, how are you going to guarantee you get your goals? I know what you're going to do. You're going to do what I did. Work harder, which creates what? Stress. But then your solution, if it's like mine, don't worry, is to work even harder, which creates more. And then one day you fall off the cliff because you're really good at motivating yourself. Perfectionism, that's another of those causes. How many perfectionists we got in the room? Yep. It's really interesting. When I looked at this list, I thought, my God, I'm the cause of all this. I was looking out there for something to blame, but I've created all this. In fact, the interesting part about it is those things that I list, those 5 things I thought were my strength. And yet, actually, they pushed me off the cliff. So what do we do about it? Well, the answer with depression and stress is go and have a shower and wash your hair with stress-relieving shampoo. Have you noticed how many stress products there are out there in the market these days? You can buy pills and potions and shampoos. Is it really gonna fix my depression? I don't think so. No. Why do you think it is there are so many of these stress products out there? Because there's so much stress. Absolutely, somebody's trying to make a buck out of it. Obviously, that's not the answer. If you go on Google and say, how do I get rid of my stress? It will come up with things like stress management. And it will say you need to do more exercise. Well, I was already training 12 hours a week in the pool. How can I fit more in? 12 hours a week? No, I can't do that. Then it says get a better diet. Well, my wife's practically a dietitian. I can't fix that. It says get better at time management. I'm anal about time management. I get to the airport 2 hours before the 2 hours. All the things it suggested in stress management, I realized I was already doing them to a huge extent. And then it suddenly struck me. If I'm making this stress, isn't it a bit stupid to manage it? Surely it'd be smarter to stop making it. Wouldn't it? The concept that we all buy into is, I'll manage my stress. You've got to be bloody insane to do that. How about stop making it? Case of the matter is, what you have to do is learn to calm your mind, and that's what mindfulness is. Think about the current moment. And we all think we think we're present. We all do. I can tell you right now, 99.9% of your time you are thinking about the past or the future, not about the present moment. An example, when my first son was born, I was in the hospital. It was a bit of a challenge with my wife, so all the doctors were sorting her out, doing the DIY stuff over there. I was given the baby. It was clean, wrapped, given to me, bang. And I looked in his eyes, and I had one of those, whoa, moments. I'm sure if you've had children, you know what I mean. It was that connection, that's a mindful moment. How long did it last? A few seconds. And then what does my brain start doing? Just like yours. Shit, how am I going to pay for this? Isn't that right? What got me into this mess? You see, your mind is never in the present moment. I know you think it is, but it's not. It's always in the past and future. And here's the most profound thing I learned about all of this. All negative emotions, you have to be in the past or the future to experience a negative emotion. I'll give you a great example. Regret. That's a negative emotion, isn't it? What have you got to be thinking about in order to experience regret? Fear. That's a negative emotion, isn't it? What have you got to be thinking about in order to experience fear? See, fear of heights is a beautiful example of that. People think, oh, I'm scared of what's happening. No, you're not. You're scared of what might happen, which is a future thought. When you actually remain in the present moment, which we very rarely do, there is no negative emotion. There is only positive. There is only happiness and joy. Happiness, do you remember that? It's a bit rare these days, isn't it? So the process I had to go through was because when I came across this word mindfulness, I thought it's some hippy-dippy shit that my wife does after yoga. Quite seriously, that was my thought. Had no understanding about all the neuroscience behind it. There's a massive amount of neuroscience and study been done on it. And it's an incredibly powerful way of taking away stress. Not managing stress. Please understand, not managing stress. What we have to do is stop making the stuff. And so I started to study mindfulness and came across things like meditation and all this sort of stuff, which I thought was ridiculous. But then when I started to study it, I realized there was a huge amount of power behind it. Not just in taking away stress, but helping people become much more creative. Robin was talking earlier about what happens when we quieten our mind. Our inspiration comes back to us. Funnily enough, Robin said that we tap into our subconscious mind, which solves the problem. I don't believe we do that. I'm not sure what we tap into, but I'm not bright enough to solve most of my problems. But I tap into something. See, it's interesting. I think the whole concept of, Mike mentioned it earlier, about the universe, tapping into the universe. Here's the interesting part. If you cut yourself, what do you do to fix it? Nothing. It fixes itself, doesn't it? We're not smart enough to do that. If you plant an acorn, what do you do to make sure an oak tree grows? Nothing. We're not smart enough to do that. But when we become mindful, what we do, somehow we nurture that connection with the bigger intelligence. I'm not going to go all religious on you because it's not a religious problem. But somehow we tap into that. And somehow the world just seems to align itself back in our place. I'll tell you how my life felt prior to this. My life felt like I was in a river swimming really fast against the current. So not traveling very far, not seeing a great deal. What mindfulness has allowed me to do is stop. Now I travel just as fast in the direction the river should be sending me, and it's effortless. And I see so much more, and I enjoy so much more. My businesses still operate, I still make money. The whole thing is exactly the same as it was, but I'm not fighting the river anymore.